everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Love Monday podcast. I'm glad you could join me today. I hope you're subscribing to these because I really think this is stuff that can help you, can help your friends, can help you love Monday just like Friday, but for a different reason. And if you don't love Monday just like Friday, you're not alone. About 70% of people hate Monday. And there are some very specific reasons for that. And that's what this podcast is all about, trying to help you with that. Today's topic is called Before They Quit, They Quit. I've had some conversations this week with people who are leaving their jobs. It's that time. I mean, there are people who are leaving their jobs involuntarily. People leaving their jobs involuntarily because of layoffs and other things. But there are other people who are moving on to greener pastures and doing bigger, better, more exciting things. And I had a conversation with one person this week who, when she turned in her notice to her boss, it was met with a lot of disbelief. The boss couldn't understand why she was leaving. And the boss even asked, why didn't you tell us sooner? Tell us sooner than 2 weeks? Who does that? I mean, some people do, and that's nice if you can, but it's not required. And for that to be the expectation of the boss is a little bit unreasonable, irrational. But what's even more telling to me is that the boss couldn't believe she was quitting. Are you kidding me? If you are a boss, if you're a manager, and you are ever surprised by somebody leaving, you're not doing your job. You're probably not a very great manager. I'm just going to say it. Everybody else is thinking it. I'm just saying it. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's unfair. You might be saying, Ryan, you've been a manager. You're going to tell me you were never surprised? No, I'm not going to tell you that. I was surprised. Especially early in my career, I was surprised a little more often than I ever was late in my career because I learned how to read the signs. And today's topic, before they quit, is what we're talking about. When someone is going to quit, they quit long before they turn in their notice. So we're going to talk about this. The title is a borrowed title from an article that I wrote about 7 years ago out on LinkedIn. It was one of my early articles. And back in those days, when you wrote an article on LinkedIn, and I was actually part of the pilot that LinkedIn had for their what they call now their long posts or their articles, where it's like a blog. It's like a separate page. And I was invited because I was such a big user of LinkedIn. I was invited to be in the pilot and be one of the early ones to produce these. So my stuff got huge audiences. And this one got well over 10,000 reads. And they used to tell you how many people have clicked on it and actually read it. Well, they can't tell you how much they read, but they actually clicked on it. And it used to be called reads. And this one had over 10,000 reads and lots of comments and lots of likes and all of those things. Lots of dislikes too. It was met with some resistance. But I want to share from that article. I'm going to read some of that article just because it sets the stage so well for this and it'll keep me from stuttering and stammering a whole lot. So I'm going to share this because my point that I was starting to make is that if you are a manager and you're surprised by somebody leaving, you shouldn't be. You're not doing the very basic things you need to do as a manager to be able to see that coming. It's what we call quiet quitting today. I called it back in 2016, I called it before they quit. But it's the same thing. People are quiet quitting all the time, and that's what we're talking about. So I'm going to go to this article. If you want to read it, I will put the link in the show notes so you can get to it. But you can go out and follow me on LinkedIn, and you'll be able to find it in my articles. I think I got about 115 articles out there that will supplement the things that we're talking about in this podcast and help you out, because that's what I'm all about. I'm here to help you. I love you, man. We can do this together. We can love Monday just like Friday, but for a different reason. So going to the article, again, called Before They Quit. I put it out there on August 4th, 2016. This article, incidentally, I'm kind of happy about it because it's been translated into other languages. I've had organizations and companies come to me who say, hey, can we borrow this? Can we copy and put it on our blog? We'll give you credit for it. But so this article's not only been read by thousands of people and resonated with thousands of people, just off of my post and off of my website, LoveMondayLikeFriday.com, and off of LinkedIn, but it's also on other outlets out there, out on the web. You'll stumble across it from time to time. Anyway, the article, Before They Quit, They Quit. It's a summer day in 2010. I'm sitting at a conference table in Houston at a client meeting. On a break, I check my phone for messages. There's a text for me to call the office as soon as possible. One of the people on my team has left his badge on his desk and walked out. Brandon, not his real name, has left the building. And since no one can get back in the door without an ID badge, Brandon is not coming back. I'm shocked by the news that Brandon has left in such an abrupt manner, except not really. I wasn't really shocked by this. For nearly 20 years, I worked as a manager of people. This is a few years ago, so I'm up beyond that many years. But for nearly 20 years, I worked as a manager of people. I worked at a big corporation. I built very engaged teams. Some of the most engaged teams, in fact, that company of 60,000 employees has ever seen. The last review of my employee engagement results with my boss produced the phrase, "We never see results like this." That still rings with pride in my ears. But the survey doesn't tell the whole story. No survey ever tells the whole story. There was other evidence that I had highly engaged teams. People tended to gravitate to my teams. They wanted to be on my teams. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't about me, at least not directly. I did have the ability to hire right and put together groups of people who will work really well together in an environment of mutual respect and trust. I also have a talent to help people reach their potential and help them see a vision of where they could be. Again, this doesn't tell the whole story. There's an ugly side of the story too. The whole story can't be told without the story of Brandon, the guy who left his badge on the desk and walked out never to return. Yeah, that's the rest of the story. When you think about every employee who has ever quit your team, if you're a manager, who's ever quit your team or organization, one thing is common to all of them. Before they quit, they quit. What I mean is, long before the employee ever gives their notice to terminate, there is a reduction in effort, a diminishing of results, a general disengagement. It has to be this way. That's a normal human response. Even in the extremely rare case where a job finds the employee, at some point they disengage from the one they're doing as they anticipate newer, greener, more inviting pastures on the other side of the fence. That was sort of the case with Brandon too. So when I said I was shocked by the news, the shock only lasted about 1 minute because I'd been traveling the road of Brandon's disengagement for a few months. Brandon was in over his head. I can tell myself he probably wasn't a good fit for the job, but it's deeper than that. I wasn't meeting his needs. I think I could have done more. Now I understand Now I understand sometimes people take jobs they are ill-suited for, and no matter how much training and mentoring they get, they made a bad choice. Brandon came highly recommended from another area of the company, but as I would find out later, he'd been struggling for a very long time. Whatever the case, Brandon was disengaged. He'd given up. He was doing the minimum to look busy until he could make his break. Before he quit, he quit. Employee disengagement is rooted in many things, and we like to play the blame game as managers because we don't like to think that we ever fail. The truth is, we fail a lot. We all do. It's part of being human, and managers are human. And I was a manager, and I was human, and I failed a lot, and I failed in this situation. So even me, the guy who built some of the most engaged teams ever, failed to engage everyone. Brandon is a prime example, but there were others. Sure, I can come up with excuses that these employees were a bad fit, that they didn't have the skill or the determination, but all that is beside the point because what the studies of employee engagement tell us, and rightly so, is that as much as 70% of the variance in employee engagement is attributable to the employee's direct manager. Most managers don't know what engagement is, and that's because most organizations don't know what employee engagement is. We hear of work cultures that provide free soda, ping pong tables, pizza, work from home days, all in the name of employee engagement. Don't get me wrong. I like all of those. And then I say in this article, well, maybe not work from home days. And that was pre-pandemic, before we knew how to really do work from home. But I'm a big fan of it now. In fact, I do it all the time. But 70% of the variance in employee engagement is on the manager. Before the employees quit, they quit. They quit when they become disengaged. Even if they are going through the motions, they are lacking productivity, energy, attention to detail, and alertness. That's why when you focus on employee engagement, things like productivity, profitability, client satisfaction, safety, and quality are all positively impacted. I like to say employee engagement is the one lever you can pull that moves all of your meaningful metrics in the right direction at the same time. If you're going to work on nothing else, work on employee engagement, because it's going to make all of those things, productivity, profitability, retention, customer retention, customer satisfaction, it's all going to go the right direction for you if you work on employee engagement. It's something called the service profit chain, and you can read about that in the Harvard Business Review. I'll try and remember to put that in the show notes as well. But this is a scientific fact. If you work on engagement, all of your other metrics will go the right way. So what can you do? Well, you can stop dividing your time inappropriately as a manager. One of the main impediments to managers engaging their employees is time with their employees. Managers divide their time inappropriately and disproportionately in favor of projects and initiatives, while time coaching their employees takes a distant back seat. I mean, way, way back. Like the back seat of one of those extra long bend-in-the-middle slinky buses. I once posted a question in the Harvard Business Review group on LinkedIn. I asked managers, what proportion of your time do you spend on projects and initiatives versus coaching your team? Responses varied a little from 90-10 to 60-40, all in favor of projects and initiatives over coaching team members. The most common response was 80-20, again in favor of projects and initiatives and not coaching. I have a good friend who has a great career in HR, and he says people leaders should do people things, not project things. I added the not project things, but his catchphrase, and it's very astute, is people leaders should do people things. But we have them doing project things the majority of the time. If you're a manager, you're thinking, yeah, that's about right, but what's wrong with that? What's wrong with it is it's backward. You should be coaching your team 80% of the time and working on projects and initiatives 20% of the time. And I didn't say this in this article, but one of the points here is most organizations hire people managers when they need to be hiring project managers. There's no reason if a people manager is spending 80 to 90% of their time with their people that they couldn't manage 20 people effectively. Yet most often what I see in organizations is somebody managing 2 or 3 or 5 people, but they've got all these projects and initiatives, and they're not managing the 2 or 3 or 5 people very effectively. But even if that's not the case, even if your organization is doing the wrong thing and hiring people managers when they should hire project managers, you still have power over this if you're a manager of people. Now, you may think I'm crazy, but hear me out. You have a team of people, and they should be spending time working those projects and initiatives, not you. You don't have to be the doer. You just need to ensure that those projects and initiatives get done. But, you say, they all have their day jobs, the things that are core to the business to accomplish. They can't possibly do more. Here's a little secret. They can do more, and they want to do more. What's more, I met a leader from a big company last week, and they're doing it. They're making it happen. They are focusing their people managers on people things. But that's a story for another day. So what you need to do, if you're a manager of people and you feel like you are spending 80% of your time or more on projects and initiatives, or even the majority of time, even if it's 51-49, you need to go have a heart-to-heart with your boss about some of those initiatives, because I'll bet a lot of them are just busy work. I'm not saying make demands and refuse to do the projects that don't fit your core mission. I'm saying have the conversation so that your boss can either help you understand how these are core to your mission, or that through the conversation, your boss will see that these initiatives are really just busy work. That's part of your job as a manager. Stop saluting and taking on more, because there will always be more work than you can do. So start communicating with your boss. You'll find you're more engaged too. So the other thing you can do, the next thing you can do, is you can discover your employees' talents and put them to use every day. It's easy to find out the talents of each of your team members. If you're unsure how to do it, reach out to me. Catch me out there on LoveMondayLikeFriday.com. You can email me, Ryan@LoveMondayLikeFriday.com, and we'll have a little conversation, at least a little email conversation, because this really is a do-it-yourself job. You can figure out what people's talents are so you can get them doing the right things on those projects and initiatives so that you don't have to do them. Before employees quit, they quit. 70% of resolving this is on you, their direct manager. Are you ready to take responsibility of that 70%? Or are you going to go on letting your people hate getting up in the morning? Not just Monday morning, but every morning. Because 70% of U.S. workers hate getting up in the morning. And worldwide, it's 87% of people hate getting up in the morning. 87% of people worldwide are not engaged at work. So that's the article. I wanted to read that. And again, I'll put that in the show notes so you can get to it. It's on LinkedIn. It's on LoveMondayLikeFriday.com. You'll stumble across it probably if you Google "before they quit, they quit." You're going to find it in several areas on several websites, and so you'll be able to read that if you want to read it. But let's talk more about this whole concept of before they quit, they quit, and quiet quitting. That's what we call it now, quiet quitting. But it really is that before people leave their job or give you their notice, they are disengaging. And again, like I said in the article, it is just a normal human response. You are going to start to have divided focus. And when you start to have divided focus, you're going to focus on what is the priority. In my experience, everyone does this. I've never seen that before. And we talk about too, how much notice should I give my employer before I leave? When I was a manager, I really didn't care, quite honestly. In fact, I would tell people, do you really need to be here for the 2 weeks? Because just help me make a transition to somebody else, because I can't possibly hire your replacement and get them trained in 2 weeks. So that you gave me 2 weeks is polite, but it doesn't really help me. So that's what I'm talking about. So let me talk more about this too. And if you're a manager and you have been surprised, just like I said at the top of this show, if you've been surprised by somebody quitting, it might be that you're just a little bit inexperienced, but we're going to talk about some things you can do to make sure that never happens to you again. If you're an employee, if you're an individual contributor, and you hear me say this and you're thinking, well, I've quit jobs before and I've worked right to the end. Yeah. You go ahead and think that, but I have literally never seen that happen before. So, but what can we do? What can we do about this? Again, my point is that for me as a manager, when I was having regular one-on-ones, that gave my people the time to tell me about stuff like this. And when I was doing one-on-ones, I made sure that my people had an emotionally safe place to be vulnerable and tell me what was going on in their lives so that they could tell me how they were feeling about their job. So when we were having effective one-on-ones, and it wasn't just about, tell me about this project, where are you here? My one-on-ones were more about the person, and I wanted to hear about what was going on. Sure, I got project updates on goals they were working. We talked about their achievements and things like that, but I wanted to know what was going on in their daily work and their daily life, quite honestly. And so if you can give your people an emotionally safe place to communicate with you, you will never, ever, never, never, ever, never be surprised by somebody quitting again, because you'll see that before they quit, they quit. I'm going to tell you another story from my time as a manager. I had a guy on my team who came to me in these one-on-ones, and he started talking to me and saying, you know what, I got to be honest with you. I'm really not that engaged. Well, he didn't say it that way because I didn't even know what engagement was back then. But he said to me, I'm really I'm kind of getting burned out, and I'm kind of thinking I might want to go do something else. I'm not really ready to leave the company, but I think I want to do something else. Well, first thing I did as a manager is I started to discourage him. I started to try to find ways to get him to stay. He was one of my star performers. I didn't want him to leave. And so we started exploring this, but we had conversations about it. And I never made him feel like he couldn't talk to me about it, which was key for both of our success. And we continued to talk about this. And we would talk week after week. I had weekly one-on-ones with my people. And he would come in, and as we were going along, he was getting more and more disengaged. He was getting more and more disconnected. He was starting to quit. He was still doing the work. He was still getting it done, but emotionally he was checking out. And finally it came to a head, and he said, there is this job. It's in another location. It's still at this company. It's not doing what we do exactly, but it's related, and I want to go there. And as soon as I realized that was his real pure goal that he wanted to do, and there was no discouraging that, there was nothing I could do to keep him, I got 100% behind him. And I said, well, who's the hiring manager? And I got on the phone with that hiring manager, and I said, you have an application by this guy named Curtis, and he's your next person for this position. Let me tell you right now, he's your guy. And I'm not telling you this because I'm trying to get rid of him. I would like to keep him, and I've been struggling to keep him for months, but he is done here, and he wants to move into your area. I'm telling you, he's your guy. Curtis got the job. He got the job in that location, in that new job, and he was happy there for a very long time. So that is the kind of thing I'm talking about. If you're having as a manager, if you're having weekly or periodic one-on-ones and they're effective, and you're asking things like, how's your work-life balance? How are you feeling about the job? What are your concerns about the job? Do you have the tools and equipment you need to do your job? And then you're giving them information back too about how they're performing. You're measuring things about their performance, and you're sharing that with them. You're going to be able to detect early on that they quit before they quit. And not only that, if you have that open a dialogue with your people, they're going to tell you right up front, just like Curtis did to me. He's going to say, he or she, whoever they are on your team is going to say, hey, I'm thinking I want to do something else. What do you think about this? And can you help me? That is a beautiful relationship between a manager and an employee. And I'm telling you, if you don't have that, you're going to get surprised by people quitting. And it's going to be very disappointing. But I'm telling you, you're also not being very effective as a manager. Now, if this just isn't in you to go to that level with your people, I'm going to tell you right now, you're in the wrong occupation, and you need to rethink your life choices. You need to step out of management and make room for somebody who can really do the job. I'm not trying to slag on you, tell you you're not good at anything. I'm just telling you, you're probably not ever going to be good as a manager. But don't feel bad, because only about 1 in 10 people have the talent it takes to be a great manager. And if that's not you, there is something that you are superb at doing. We just need to help you find that thing. So again, reach out to me. If you want help with that, I can help you. I can coach you. So let's talk about how we resolve these things then. If this is what's going on. So we'll come back to managers, but I'm going to start with you individual contributors who are listening to this podcast. And I appreciate you listening. I hope you're subscribing so you can get these when they come out. But if you're an individual contributor, start to look at yourself. Have you quietly quit? Where you are right now, have you quietly quit to one degree or another? Are you looking to move on? Have you mentally and emotionally left the building? Because if you have, it's just a matter of time till you're going to physically leave the building, but you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your boss and to your organization to ask yourself a few questions. So if you have emotionally and mentally left the building, I want you to answer this question. Why have you left? What is it that's making you leave? Is it your manager? Are you burned out on the work? You've just been doing it too long and it's not giving you any new challenges. You don't feel like you're progressing. You don't feel like you're developing in your career. You feel like it's just not interesting anymore. If you're burned out or burning out, that could be a reason. Do you not know why? Do you not know why you've left the building? That's a good thing. That's a good question to ask you too. I mean, do you know why you've left? And if you don't know why you've left, I want you to start to think about things like, how is my manager? How is my relationship with my manager? When I bring my opinions or my ideas, does my manager listen to me? Do I know what's expected of me at work? Is anybody talking to me about my development and my progress and my performance? Any of those things. Do you get to do the things that you do best? Or do you feel like you're watching the clock? Do you feel like time passes so slowly and you hate what you do? That might be why you've mentally and emotionally left the building, and before you've quit, and you're on your way to, make no mistake about it, but before you actually have turned in your notice, you've already quit to some extent. So if that's the case, if you feel like you've already quit, I want you to ask yourself these questions. Do you know what's expected of you? Does your manager give you feedback on your performance? Does your manager care about your opinions? Does your manager encourage your development? When is the last time you didn't dread Monday? When is the last time you didn't have the Sunday scaries? Or the Monday scaries or the Tuesday scaries? And when was the last time on your job you had a peak experience? So ask those questions of yourself. Do you know what's expected? And does your manager give you feedback on your performance? Does your manager care about your opinions? How do you know whether or not he or she does? Does your manager encourage your development? When's the last time you didn't dread Monday? And when's the last time you had a peak experience where time passed without notice, you were energized by your work, you couldn't wait to get back and do it again? Ask yourself those questions. If those are hard questions to answer, then what I want you to do next is go talk to your boss. Or can you? Don't even just go talk to your boss. I want you to ask these questions now. Are you prepared to do something about these things? Can you talk to your boss about this? That you're starting to quit, that you're quietly quitting, you're checked out. Is it an emotionally safe space for you to be able to express this? If it's not, go get a new boss. That's what I'm telling you, because it's not going to get any better. If you can't have an emotionally safe space to have conversations like this with your manager, you need to get a new boss. Because if it hasn't happened yet and you've been there for a while, it's not going to change. So it may be time for a change, but don't waste your life doing stuff that's unfulfilling. So that's what I'm talking about. It might be time. How many Sundays are you going to stress because they're followed by Monday? How many of those? You know, that's a big question. Don't give your life away for somebody else. Now, that's for you if you're an individual contributor. Now, if you're a manager, I want you to ask yourself this. Who has quietly quit on your team? Do you know specifically, individually, who has quietly quit, or who is on the verge of quietly quitting, or in process of quietly quitting? Look at if you want to know as a team, if your team is quietly quitting, because that happens too, look at your engagement results. If you have an employee engagement survey in your company, it's probably on like a 5-point scale. It's either on a 5-point scale or a 100-point scale. It's almost always that way. So if it's a 5-point scale, if your aggregate score for your team is anything lower than 4, your team is not engaged, and at least some of them are quietly quitting and quitting before they quit. If it's on a 100-point scale and your score is less than 80, then, and this is if you have in your survey, if it's got 5 responses, that's how the math works on this. So if your survey goes from strongly disagree to strongly agree, and it's 5 points, and your average comes out on a 5-point scale, and you've got anything less than a 4, your team isn't engaged. If it's a 100-point scale and your score is less than 80, your team isn't engaged. So you got one or more people who are already gone and feeling strong, to quote the Eagles. you need to look at that. So what does your engagement score tell you? And if your company isn't doing an engagement survey, you need to get an engagement survey done. You need to use your influence to make sure they start doing that. And if you need help with that, I can help you with that too. I help teams and organizations do engagement surveys. I can point you in the right direction to great surveys that you can use, that you can get access to. Great systems, actually. I know of one really great one that I evangelize all the time called Bridge. You can go out and find that one, and that is a really great survey, and I can tell you all about it. But if you already have a survey, I can help you with your results as well. So again, if your survey results are on a 5-point scale and you got anything less than a 4, and if it's on a 100-point scale and you got anything less than an 80, your people are already gone. They've already quit before they quit, at least some of them. You might have a few who haven't, but you probably got more than one who has. So what are you going to do about all the quiet quitters? If you're a manager and you got people quietly quitting, if your survey score is on a 5-point scale and it's under 4, or if it's on a 100-point scale and it's under 80, what are you going to do? You can absolutely fix this. You can as a manager. And it's not going to take paying people more, usually, at least if you're paying at the market or better. You're not going to have to worry about pay, things that you can't control. These are things that you can absolutely control. You can absolutely fix this. I have a course. If you go to LoveMondayLikeFriday.com, that's LoveMondayLikeFriday.com. I have a course called Love Monday Just Like Friday for people leaders. Right now, it's only $47. It's got videos, it's got exercises, it's got practice things that you can do to help engage your team, to help stop the quiet quitting, to help people so that they don't quit before they quit. Go to LoveMondayLikeFriday.com, a $47 course with multiple modules and great video and items that you can do, practice things and homework items that you can take to improve the engagement on your team. So go check that out. It's $47 right now, but it's going to go to $147 in March, at the end of March. So in April, it's going to go to $147. So at least go enroll in it. Even if you can't take it right now, go get enrolled on that $47 course for managers. What you'll also want to do, if you're not going to sign up for that course, another thing you can do is you can pay attention to the 12 elements of employee engagement that Gallup has put out. After all their research, and I've talked about this in podcasts before, the 12 elements of employee engagement are going to guide you, their manager, to what they need to be really engaged at work and to help them love Monday just like Friday. If you know that your people either agree or strongly agree to all 12 of those items, you have 0 people quietly quitting on your team. But if anybody is anything less than agreement to that, actually, even if they're less than strongly agreed, you're on the cusp there. So pay attention to that. But the 12 elements of employee engagement, you can Google that. It's from Gallup. You can also find it on LoveMondayLikeFriday.com. Or most of my articles will reference these, and you'll be able to get links to that there. I'll also put a link out there where you can find these 12 elements in the show notes. So I've given you some good things to think about. Remember, before they quit, they quit. If you're an individual contributor and you're starting to get burned out because you're not using your strengths and your talents, your opinions don't count, you basically don't have a great job, you're probably already in the process of quitting. If you're a manager, you got people who are quitting, undoubtedly. So what can you do to fix that? You got a lot of good tips here. You can go to LoveMondayLikeFriday.com. You can go to my show notes for the links to all these things I've referenced today. And I will catch you on the next Love Monday podcast. Hey, go out and subscribe. It really helps me out. And I will talk to you guys soon. Thanks.